Did this just come from an audition? Did you have any idea what it was that you were going in to read for?
No, not at all. I just went to a regular audition, and there was a lot of like comedian girls that were in there waiting. I think it was at Warner Brothers, right? And I just was, I just knew that I had been familiar with the Pee Wee Herman thing,
Right.
the show. So I thought, well, I knew like his girlfriend, I didn't want to play her like this, sexy Hollywood girl. So I just knew she had to be a little bit of a tomboy and just kind of like real, fun, quirky.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just an audition, and then that was it.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you lived in LA, you knew about the Pee Wee Herman show, but it was a very short. It's a very specific kind of humor, and I'm wondering if when you first started rehearsing with Paul, did you have to find the relationship, because he's sort of neutral gender. He's in a lot of ways he's 9 years old. He's not sexualized yet. And did you have to kind of find how to play that stuff?
I think I just really felt like Dottie and Pee Wee are on the same page as far as that. I felt like she was just really into bikes and fixing the bike, and obviously she loved Pee Wee, but I just think they weren't like super sexualized. I personally am, never mind. Anyway, no, I'm just kidding. But no, I think they just really like, I just remember showing up on the set, and then there was, I get to see, it wasn't like I spent a lot of time with Paul before that. I just showed up, and I think they just knew what they were looking for. And, there was this wacky genius director, Tim Burton, and it was his first movie, so we were kind of like, wow, this, I just noticed, like, this guy is really genius. Like, we didn't know anything about him other than the short he had done. And so I just felt
like... Was the short Frankenweenie or Vincent?
Frankenweenie.
Frankenweenie.
Yeah.
And did you watch that before you...
I watched them, yeah, and I was like, wow, they had a lot of really big expectations for him, and I just saw, being on the set with him, that he was really very meticulous and genius, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I had no idea that the movie was going to be like, we would be coming here 40 years later, and, so great.
Yeah, I think, Diane, I wanted to ask you, when you were working on this, because it's not a dissimilar, it's one of the things that you guys put into the movie was that you get this top of the second act, it's just every urban legend. Like, it's a beautiful road movie, you bang down every urban legend, you knock them all down. And when you were working in the film, did you feel that the director, was Tim Burton yet? Because it was his first movie. Was he still finding his way?
He was absolutely precious. He came to my little cottage because I had like 5 different Southern accents to do. And I knew I would never get cast as the waitress if I sounded like me. So I thought I'd talk like that. And he came to my little cottage, and he picked out, I wanted to know some obscure Southern accent. He wanted the one that everyone would understand.
Right.
But he was just so sweet. And one of my fondest memories is going to the set when I wasn't working. And those days, you could actually do that. You could actually go to Warner Brothers. You didn't have to have, what's his name in the movie? Milton Berle to get in. You just got in. And I went
It's
in.
unfortunate that there are no obvious jokes about Milton.
No. And I went in, and it was the scene where the convict and Pee Wee are falling from the sky in the convertible, and it opens up a new parachute, and I'm watching this, and I went up to Tim and Paul when they were taking a break, and I said, look, you don't know this about me, but I'm very psychic and intuitive, and this is going to be a huger movie than anyone has any idea about. And they just kind of looked at me and smiled. They didn't really believe it. And I just knew, seeing this scene that I had nothing to do with, I could separated, just look, and I thought, oh my God, this is genius.
And then you and Paul got back together
Yes,
and
twice.
gave birth to the penguin.
Yes. It was a difficult birth.
Yes. But yeah, was did you ever joke that that was Simone and Pee Wee's child?
It's weird because Tim put us in exactly the same positions as he did in Pee Wee's Big Adventure. I don't even think he was aware of it, but you know, when you see the stills, we're in exactly the same position. Both movies. It's bizarre. And Paul would crack me up so much before, you know, before Tim would go, and action, I'd say, shut up, Paul, shut up. We have to be serious here. Our baby's eating the cat, you know. And he loved to crack me up. Just loved it. I kept saying, shut up, shut up.
You were talking about seeing his short films. His first short film was a stop motion short that he made at Disney called Vincent. And that's where I believe some of the Kyoto brothers come in.
Yeah. That's right. How did you know? That's what
Do
I
I
meant.
call you the Kyodai? What do I call you?
Kyoto, yeah. I was contacted by Rick Heinrichs, who was Tim Burton's Cal Arts partner.
Right. Did you guys go to Cal Arts?
Pardon?
Did you guys go to Cal Arts?
Oh no. I teach there now. They would never have accepted me earlier. And they had this really cool project, Vincent. Again, a little boy who believes he's Vincent Price. They had never really done stop motion before, so I was brought on as a technical director and the animator on the project. So I met Rick and Tim at that time, and Tim was always Tim Burton,
Right.
even back then. Talking with his hands like this, and very, very creative. And he wanted to do something pretty creative with stop motion. He wanted to create a two-dimensional graphic style with a three-dimensional puppet. And it was pretty innovative, and it did pretty well for him in the Chicago Film Festival and all over. But that was my introduction. I was the animator on the project and kind of supervised, you know, how to do the project.
Who here has seen Vincent? It must be on YouTube now, yeah?
Yeah, it is.
If you haven't seen it, go home and watch it. It's fun.
So much Tim Burton. It's
Yeah.
who Tim Burton is.
It's
It's
everything you need to know is right there. It's right there. Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. So, Rick Heinrichs calls you and says, I'm doing this movie with Tim Burton, and there's some stop motion we got to do in it.
Yeah, that's right. It was Rick Heinrichs got a hold of me, and he was supervising the animation. He had two animation cuts in the film. There was the Tyrannosaurus Rex and this thing called Large Marge. And I said, oh, I want to do the dinosaur, because I love stop motion dinosaurs. And Rick said, no, I'm going to do that one. So I got stuck with Large Marge, and we really didn't know how to do it. So my brothers and I got together, and we decided to do a head casting of Alice Nunn. So we had a head casting. And then we made a flexible mold. We poured clay into it and made this kind of clay facsimile that I would then animate frame by frame. But it never really was that easy. We put fake eyes in it. How did we do it? It looked like a clay dummy. It didn't really work well. So then we figured we used Alice Nunn's wig that she used in the movie. We took her wardrobe, put that on our clay figure. And in fact, Edward, what did you do?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's way more complicated than you would think.
Replacement eyes were made, the 15 or 10 sets of them to make the eyes grow and everything. The interesting thing was the clay bust didn't look quite as realistic, and we called Bonnie come in and do the makeup on it. Bonnie DeHaven. She came in and put the makeup on it and made it look just like Large Marge in the movie. Many of you may not know that Pee-wee did another thing at the MGM Disney Studios in Orlando for the tour. We did a little short with Pee-wee running across the field to meet Daryl Hannah, and she did a Large Marge take. Tim Burton invented that boo scare, which is now the Large Marge take, and we've done it several times. At UHF we did one with 3 of them. Weird Al Yankovic.
If there's one more great thing about this, Billy Weber, who was the editor, I was just reminding him of that. When we first
worked on Days of Heaven, Badlands, and that made you, but I would think like you did work on Taxi Driver, you did work on Badlands, Ten Spot, that sort of made you the natural choice for this film. But you're a big fan of the Marx Brothers. You're a fan of the Marx Brothers, from what I've read about you.
You're a fan of the Marx Brothers.
Yeah. Tim, this film is very much a live-action cartoon. Does that inform how you edit? Because at a certain point, it becomes your movie for a period.
Can you hear me? Yeah. No, it doesn't inform me.
Just talk about why you cut his and how that made it that so much better.
You did a great job, Bill. You cut it at the right time. It was a perfect sequence. The build-up, Paul's reaction, and then the final boo cut, top-notch.
To answer your question, I cut to tell the story, and that's what I'm always thinking of, is just telling the story. But in the case of this movie, I had just finished editing a picture called Beverly Hills Cop. And Bob Shapiro, who was one of the producers on the movie with Rich, and he knew Marty Brest because Marty's first movie was for Warner Brothers, and Bob was at Warner Brothers at the time.
Martin Brest, who directed Beverly Hills Cop.
I'm sorry, what?
Martin Brest, who directed Beverly Hills Cop.
Beverly Hills Cop, and then we were just finishing the mix of Beverly Hills Cop. Bob Shapiro called Marty, and he had heard about Beverly Hills Cop because we had had 2 previews at Paramount on Beverly Hills Cop that went extremely well. It was shocking. The studio was shocked, but it went so well that the word spread throughout Hollywood to the studios how well it went. So Bob Shapiro heard about that and he called Marty, because he knew Marty. He said, "So who's cutting your movie?" And Marty gave him my name. And so Bob called me, would I be interested in coming out to Warner's and talking and meeting this young director he had that he was going to produce a movie for about Pee Wee Herman, starring Pee Wee Herman. And I said, sure. And I went out and I met Tim. At the time, Tim had only done one film called Frankenweenie for Disney. And Disney hated Frankenweenie. And they wanted to cancel Tim's contract immediately. So the guy who was pretty much head of feature production at Warner's, David Rosenberg, what was his name? He passed away. The guy that was head of production at Warner's at the time.
Let's just call him Money Powerman.
No. I just can't. But anyway, he really loved him. And when he heard that Warner Brothers was Disney was very upset with Frankenweenie, he immediately went and offered Tim a job and called Disney, couldn't we take over his contract and all of that? And Disney said yes. And so Tim came to Warner's.
How much of what you created came from you, Paul, Tim? Was it all, different things came to it? How did you delineate that?
Well, to begin with, I had a call from Bob Shapiro, and I was working at Disney on my science project, and Tim Burton and Tom Ackerman and Rick Heinrichs were all working on Frankenweenie. So at that time, it was the old old regime of Disney, the family. And so they'd make one or two pictures, like Splash or something, but they really didn't want to make movies because they had a lot of income from re-releasing cartoons.
Right.
So I finished my science project, and all of a sudden Jeff Katzenberg and Michael Eisner and Frank Wells took over the studio and turned everything upside down. So Tim was the stage around the corner, and we were odd looking and appearing from everybody else who worked at Disney, who were waiting for Walt to come back to life.
Right.
They were hoping Walt would come back and they could keep making,
Fox and the Hound. It felt like an ersatz version of itself.
Yeah, and so I was packing up my boxes at Disney, but Tim and I had offices right across from each other in the old animation building, which is, such a beautiful place and full of talent. So Bob calls me up and says, I'm Bob Shapiro. I was the head of Warner Brothers, and I'm an independent producer now at the company. I have an output deal. And Tim Burton has only asked me for one thing so far. And remember, David, this is the first movie I'm ever producing. So I said, okay. He said, well, Tim Burton, the only thing he has for him is you. And I said, well, that's because I'm the only production designer he ever met. Except for Rick Heinrichs, who wasn't in the union. Who, by the way, has Academy Awards.
Yeah.
So he said, so would you do you know who Pee Wee is? I said, yeah, I saw the show at the Roxy, he's great. I'm going to Hawaii. He burned out this picture with Dennis Hopper and a bunch of crazy people. It was a very, very expensive sci-fi movie.
What was that?
My Science Project.
Okay.
And it was written by the man who wrote The Last Starfighter, John Lennon. So I said, well, thanks, but
Talked for about an hour, and I last and told Bob Shapiro, yes, I'd be very interested in doing this movie. Then Bob did all this work he had to do to sign me, and we were just finishing the mix on Beverly Hills Cop, and I told Marty Brest and Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, the producers of Beverly Hills Cop, I'm going to go to work soon on another movie. What is it? I said, well, it's a movie starring Pee Wee Herman. And it's being directed by a brand new young director. And they looked at me and said, are you nuts? You just finished this picture. And you're going to go do a Pee Wee Herman movie? And I said, well, I like this director, this young director. And I think he's going to do something really good. He's going to do something like a good thing. And I'll just quickly tell you. So then, Jim and I did the movie, we finished it. We had this big preview at Grauman's Chinese. Yeah, a major Hollywood preview. And they, Jerry Bruckheimer and Marty, both were invited to the preview. And they went to the preview. And I saw them immediately afterwards. And they both came up to me and said, okay, fine, you were right.
I want to thank everybody's, yours and everyone on the panel's patience, because I do want to make sure everybody has their moment, and Mark and David, you guys have been very patient. I do have a follow-up question for Billy and Rich specifically, was when you started to turn in your prints and your first cut, what was Warner Brothers' notes on this movie? Because I'm wondering, my guess is they had no idea what they had. And I can just envision, I just don't like the guy in the bow tie, and I don't think it needs to have the bike in it. But outside of that, you know what would be good in this movie? Tommy Katane.
rights.
Really?
The script was,
Yeah, well, so,
Well, look at this. Varhol swooped in like a sniper. He said, Mark Michael says,
What? No,
I will pull this car over.
I'm old.
We're
No, what
all,
happened was, I don't remember there being any notes of, because they couldn't get it, they never got it. They
Right.
never got it until it went into the movie theaters. What happened was, Billy reminded me, and I think Mike was saying the same thing. We had a screening, we had a series of screenings. We had one in Austin, Texas. I was concerned about it. All they cared about was, well, we got to do something with this movie. What are we going to do with it? And so they gave us a choice. They said you could preview the movie and you pick a city and we'll pick a city. I knew that Austin, and it has to be within 2 hours flying distance of Warner Brothers. That was one of the things. They had their own jet, obviously. And so I picked Austin because Paul had done really well in Austin. He was a really big thing in Austin. Certain things happened. So I picked Austin, they picked San Diego. They told me, don't tell anybody that Paul's going to be there. Well, I was worried that nobody would show up. Kind of like tonight, I was worried that nobody would show up. Full audience, yeah. Thank you for coming and rejuvenating our enjoyment in the film. But anyway, so we went to Austin, and I was worried that nobody'd show up, so I bought some time on David Letterman out of my own money, and ran these kind of a PowerPoint commercials to make sure that people would know that this sneak preview was going to be Paul and Pee Wee. And so zillions of people showed up, including the people from Warner Brothers who were angry. What?
100 people showed up at this preview dressed as Pee Wee.
That's true, I forgot about that. And the head of marketing came up waving the newspaper article that I had planted in the paper that Paul was going to be there, going like, you mother. And anyway, the cards were so good. The definitely recommends, which is what they were going by at that time, were at 89%. And then where we did nothing like this of the kind, the next day or two in San Diego, they were the same. But they still didn't believe in the movie. And they sent us out, they said, we're going to open the movie in 3 cities in July. And if it works, then we'll open it in August. And if you know anything about the movie business, which I imagine everybody does here, your money's in July. When it comes to August, that's where they put the other films. And so what happened was we did really well in the 3 cities that we went to.
It outgrows Back to the Future.
It scurried around and got into a bunch of theaters and it opened on August 9th, which actually the Academy's going to celebrate that anniversary on August 9th. 40 years, and we would have a big thing where...
And by the time I drove home to my little bachelor efficiency at Rancho Los Feliz, right around the corner here,
Brad,